Have you ever noticed someone in your neighborhood who seems a little lonely? In our fast-paced lives, it's so easy to get caught up in our own world. I want to share a story about a family who is just like that, always on the go, a whirlwind of work, school, and activities. Right next door to them lived an elderly man. His home was quiet, a stark contrast to the lively chaos of theirs. Day after day, he'd sit by his window watching the world go by. The family would see him, maybe give a quick wave, but they were always too busy, too wrapped up in their own lives to stop and think about the silence that filled his home. No one ever seemed to visit him. His mailbox was often empty, save for bills and junk mail. He was a constant, quiet presence, a backdrop to their busy lives, but he remained a stranger, isolated in his solitude just a few feet away. The contrast was striking. One house brimming with noise and activity, the other steeped in a profound and lonely quiet. They knew he was there, but they didn't really see him. They were neighbors in proximity, but worlds apart in connection. The parents in this busy family, let's call them Mark and Sarah, often felt a small pang of guilt when they saw their neighbor, Mr. Henderson, sitting alone. They'd tell themselves, we should really go over and say hello properly, but the moment would pass. Their days were a relentless cycle of getting the kids ready, rushing to work, managing household chores, and collapsing on the sofa completely drained. Their children, a boy and a girl, were a bit wary of the old man next door. To them, he seemed a bit scary or at the very least, boring. They couldn't imagine what they would even talk about with him. The idea of spending time with someone so old and quiet just didn't appeal to their high-energy, fun-seeking minds. Mark and Sarah understood, but they also felt a deeper pull. As people of faith, they had been taught that God has a special place in his heart for the forgotten, the overlooked, and the lonely. A verse often came to mind, one about loving your neighbor as yourself. It wasn't just a suggestion. It was a core command. They realized their neighbor wasn't just a random old man. He was their neighbor, someone God had placed directly in their path. The conviction grew heavier. Were they truly living out their faith if they ignored the lonely soul living right next door? The tiredness, the excuses, the kids' reluctance, it all started to feel like a flimsy shield against a clear and simple calling to show love. One evening, after tucking the kids into bed, Mark and Sarah sat together in their quiet living room. The silence felt different tonight. It reminded them of the silence in the house next door. They decided they couldn't ignore the feeling any longer. They held hands and prayed. It was a simple, heartfelt prayer. Lord, our hearts are willing, but we're so tired. We don't know how to start. Please give us your heart for Mr. Henderson. Help us to see him as you see him. Show us how to love our neighbor. The next day, feeling a renewed sense of purpose, they decided to take the first small step. After dinner, they baked a few extra cookies and, taking a deep breath, walked over with the kids and knocked on Mr. Henderson's door. That first visit was a little awkward, but they pushed through. Soon it became a daily habit. It started with just 5 minutes. Sometimes they'd bring him his mail, other times they'd share a story from their day. The kids, initially hesitant, slowly began to warm up. They discovered Mr. Henderson had a fantastic collection of old board games. Soon, their short visits turned into lively game nights. They started sharing meals once a week. The family would bring over an extra plate, and Mr. Henderson, in turn, would share stories from his incredible life tales of travel, of love, of challenges overcome. The awkwardness melted away, replaced by genuine affection and laughter that filled the once silent house. What happened next was truly beautiful and something the family could never have predicted. Mr. Henderson, who was once a quiet figure in a window, transformed into a beloved member of their family. He became the grandfather their children never had the chance to know. He was full of wisdom and patience. He taught the son how to tie a proper knot and the daughter how to identify different birds in the garden. He didn't just share stories. He shared his life, his experience, his heart. The family found that in giving their time, they received so much more in return. Their own family dynamics shifted. They became closer, more unified in their shared mission of love. The children learned one of life's most valuable lessons, empathy. They learned to look beyond the surface, to see the person, not the age. They saw firsthand that everyone has a story worth hearing and that simple acts of kindness can bridge any gap. The love they poured into Mr. Henderson's life overflowed and filled their own home, making it richer, warmer, and more meaningful than ever before. Their house was no longer just a place of busy chaos. It was a hub of multi-generational love and connection. As time went on, Mr. Henderson's health began to decline. The vibrant storyteller and game player grew frail. But this time, he was not alone. The family that was once too busy to say hello was now constantly by his side. They took turns reading to him, holding his hand, and simply being present. The children, who once thought he was boring, would sit quietly in his room, their presence a comfort. They weren't scared anymore. They were filled with a deep, protective love for their adopted grandpa. In his final days, Mr. Henderson's home was not a place of sad, lonely silence. It was filled with quiet love, whispered prayers, and the gentle hum of a family that had come to cherish him. He passed away peacefully, surrounded by people who loved him not as a duty but as family. He was not a forgotten man who died alone. He was a beloved grandfather, a cherished friend who left this world feeling seen, valued, and deeply loved. The family grieved their loss, but their sorrow was mingled with an immense sense of gratitude for the gift of his friendship. This story is a powerful reminder for all of us. God places people in our lives for a reason. He has a special love for the elderly, the widowed, and the lonely, and he often invites us to be his hands and feet. Who is the Mr. Henderson in your neighborhood? Maybe it's an elderly person you see on your walks, a quiet neighbor you've never spoken to, or even a relative you haven't called in a while. An empty house isn't just an empty building. It often represents an empty heart waiting for connection. God's love has the power to fill both. A simple visit, a shared meal, a listening ear, these small acts of kindness can transform a life, including your own. Let us ask God to open our eyes to the lonely around us and give us the courage to step out and be a neighbor. Let's be the ones who bring light and love into the quiet corners of our communities. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that inspires hope and care.